Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on the Weekend Show. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presented the 2024 appropriation bill to the National Assembly just this week. Now, the bill, or the budget, is for about 27 trillion. Now, it's been reported about 7 trillion of that will be funded by borrowing. What do Nigerians think of it? We've also had alleged news from some people stating that it was an empty box and there are no details of the budget. However, there's been some breakdowns which are in the public domain. Also, the PDP has said the National Assembly should reject the budget. But we need to look into it and see how sustainable it is and what the potential prospects are. Joining us to have this conversation, we have
Comrade Godwin Omini, who is the Director General, PDP Young Stakeholders Forum. Good morning and welcome to the show.
How are you, Mom? I was actually admiring your boss's suit when I came in. It looks very nice. Thank you. My name is Godwin Omini, like sorry, what was the name? Didi has said, okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I want to use this medium to say that the PDP, we had a better plan and a better strategy to how to approach the current economic situation. But well, it's unfortunate we're no longer there. We are not in power right now. But I want to say this, that as it stands right now, the policies that are being made in this country are no longer affecting either APC, PDP, or Labour Party. It's the Nigerian citizen at large. So whatever Mr. President is doing at this moment, he must consider the importance, the well-being of the nation of Nigerians. And in respect to that budget, I also think that that budget should be rejected by the National Assembly.
Okay, yeah. Before we even discuss that, and this is a good introduction, we have a guest online. Let's let him give us, from budget, an overall analysis and overview of the budget, then we'll break it down.
Okay, on Zoom we have Ini Ubong Usen, who is the Head Research and Policy Advisory at Budget. Good morning, Ini Ubong.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning to you guys in the studio.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. Could you speak to us based on your own expertise on the budget allocation, its adequacies, its inadequacies, and everything in between?
Okay, yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, so the 2024 budget, I mean, in nominal terms, seems to be Nigeria's largest budget, right? So it's like a 10.8% increase from the 24 trillion naira, cumulative budget for 2023. But if you look at that budget in dollar terms, you would see that it's a decline, a 35% decline from the 2023 budget. And that's largely due to the fact that the currency was devalued from around 436 naira to 750 naira to the dollar. And so you are looking at a 36 or approximately $37 billion budget for 2024. Now, if you come to the macro assumptions, the assumptions that should inform how government plan to raise and spend in the 2024 fiscal year. For some of those assumptions, we think they are realistic. For some other ones, we think they are, overly ambitious, as the case may be. If you look at GDP growth, the government has projected a GDP growth of about 3.7%, which is a little bit below what the World Economic Outlook, that's the IMF, projects at 3.1%. And it's a little bit more in line with what the government can achieve as against what it had promised in its manifesto, which was a 10% growth yearly for the next 4 years. And also away from the $1 trillion economy that it has also that we also saw in the news. Now, if you come to the oil production, which is looking at producing 1.78 million barrels per day. We think that with some of the legacy issues bedeviling the oil and gas sector, we don't think that in the next 1 year, the federal government will be able to ramp up production to 1.78 million barrels per day, which has serious implications for what we have projected as oil revenues. I mean, the issues around oil theft, the issues around alien oil infrastructure, declining investments in that sector are things that would take some time for government to address, especially looking at the body language around oil theft. Till date, I do not know any entity that government is currently prosecuting in court for oil theft. It looks like all of those arrangements are happening behind the scenes, and there's no real deterrent for persons who have continued to, steal from the states, as regards oil. Then if you come to inflation also, the government is projecting an inflation of about 21.4%. As at October, we had inflation at 27%. That's headline inflation, a food inflation at over 31%. We also don't think that, considering the fact that fuel subsidy has been discontinued, which has led to an increase in the price of petrol at the pump, and the unification of the naira or devaluation of the naira as a result of the unification of the different windows for the exchange rates, would not continue to have a significant upward effect on inflation. So we think keeping inflation at 21.4% might not be something that is realistic. Now, if you come to the fiscals, looking at government revenue projections, as at August, going by the account of the Accountant General of the Federation, we had FGN cumulative revenues at 3.9 trillion, almost 4 trillion. But with the budget speech, the president has stated that as at September, that we had our revenues at 8.6 trillion, which puts there's some doubts we have regarding that figure, because we do not think that in 1 month or in 30 days, government was able to make 4.6 trillion, because that's what it means. Because if as at August, your revenues were at 3.9 trillion, and as at September, you are reporting an 8.6 trillion naira revenue, it means that in 30 days, you had made more than what you had made in the last 8 months. So we need some clarity. We need some harmonization around the reporting of fiscal accounts. We've seen that year in, year out, usually the reports from different agencies of government are usually at disparity with each other. What the Accountant General of the Federation publishes is usually different from what the Budget Office of the Federation publishes. So there needs to be some harmonization with regards to reporting on the fiscal account, so we know exactly where we are as it regards our revenue generation. If you come to oil revenues, solid mineral revenues, we think that the government is under projecting. If you look at the MTEF, over the course of the next 3 years, government is projecting to earn not more than 6 billion naira every year from solid minerals. And we think that's way below the potential of Nigeria, especially if we consider the fact that across the length and breadth of this federation, Nigeria is blessed with solid minerals in commercial quantity. So we need to begin to maximize the gains from that particular sector, especially if you consider the fact that within the context of the energy transition and the movement from fossil fuel to renewables, there's been an increased demand for transition, minerals like lithium, graphite, which Nigeria has in considerable quantity. So I don't know why over the next 3 years we are projecting to generate, less than 6 billion naira each year from that. We think that government can do a lot more. if we come to expenditure, of course, we're happy with the fact that, comparative to previous budget years, that there's been some increase in, capital expenditure component of the budget. We're worried that, the debt service, continue to be on the rise. And if you put that side by side with government revenues, it puts us in a somewhat precarious situation. So our debt service to revenue ratio over the last couple of years has been, very high, getting to unsustainable levels. At some point, even for the first 4 months of 2023, I think we had over 100%. And so we need to be able to ramp up revenues to to be able to meet our debt obligations before you now even begin to talk about the recurrent non-debt obligations and then your capex as the case may be. Then if you come down to the fiscal deficit financing element of the budget, with regards to foreign borrowing, the government has projected a foreign borrowing plan of 1.7 trillion. But if you situate that within the news that came out that the president had approached the National Assembly to approve borrowings of $8.6 billion and 100 million euros, by our estimates, it puts that cumulatively at close to 7 trillion. So that places the foreign borrowing at 7 trillion. Now, what we don't know is if that borrowing plan is supposed to finance government deficits, projected deficits in the medium term, that's for 2024 to 2026. If that is the case, then that's wrong, because you cannot be projecting to borrow or borrowing against appropriation acts that have not been enacted. So the budget for 2024, 2025, and 2026, they are not in place yet. So we cannot be approaching the National Assembly to borrow against appropriation bills or acts that are not in effect yet. And so we need some clarity as to what that particular borrowing is for, which fiscal year is it tied to, and which specific, budget line items is that borrowing plan tied to. So in a summary, that's like a summary of what our position is at the moment. We would need, more details in terms of the breakdown of the budget to be able to provide a more comprehensive feedback on the budget, on the 2024 budget proposal.
Thank you very much, Enio Bongosen. He's the head of research and policy advisory at Budget. Thank you so much for giving us this overview. We'll see if we get more clarity and an expanded document in the next couple of weeks, and we'll bring you back for your analysis. Thank you very much, Enio Bong.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and have a beautiful day.
And you too. Comrade, you've had his analysis, which is why I wanted it. Few things stood out. Based on the devaluation of the Naira, this is actually a decrease in the budget. It's just because there's now higher inflation and the Naira to dollar value has gone higher. So that's quite commendable. However, the same concerns which I raised about borrowing and some of the bits which he mentioned had come up. But what are your thoughts?
Well, on borrowing, I feel that the federal government are not projecting properly in that regard, because I don't see the need for why you're appropriating a budget on borrowing when we could actually do more within our country, our nation, in terms of capital development. And what do I mean? We have potentials. We have mineral resources. We have a lot of we have talents in this country. We have businesses, upcoming businesses, and that I feel that if the federal government really wants proper growth and thinks of generating proper revenue, at least to an extent, if they deploy more resources, more funds in respect to developing human capital here in our country, like small-scale businesses like SMEs, and make it easy for people to run their businesses and generate revenue. You realize, I say, you have foreign nations like the China, we have US, and one of the things that have given them that edge is the fact that they patronize their internal revenues, their internal businesses. So I wouldn't think that borrowing is going to be helping this country. We've done a lot of borrowing already, and I think that at this junction we should begin to look in depth. We should begin to look within ourselves. How can we generate more revenues within ourselves, within the nation, within the country? And that is it through how do I put it? Pushing in more funds into the business, the SMEs. That's from my own perspective, the SMEs, and then trying to see that we harness what we have within ourselves, like agriculture is a very strong place where we could use to, one area our government has not looked at is exporting, trying to encourage exportation within our system. I mean, and we're talking about the dollar, the rise of dollar, and okay, of recent at least they've tried to stabilize it to 7.50 per dollar. I mean, if we do a lot more of exportation, if the government can patronize a lot more of exportation within our boundaries, it could help bring down increase the value of our naira.
Okay, that's very good. Before Didi's last question, just a few points to state. The new CEO of Smedan has just signed an agreement with Sterling Bank to provide of about 5 billion naira to provide loans for SMEs and small businesses. I agree with you. I think it should even be more. Ease of business is extremely important. Stabilizing the naira at 750, it's still 1,150 at the black market, and so that's still a huge problem. What's the point of it, or if we still have black markets? And even at the banks, they still don't receive the smaller denomination. So we're saying, oh, we want your $100 and above, and that doesn't really make sense. So there'll always be a market for black markets, which would cause this issue. So you do raise very valid points. Well, did he ask her final question?
I was going to say, you raise valid points when it comes to ways to generate revenue for the country, but most of what you stated are things that require investment and long-term, or yield results in the long term. But right now, we need these resources that, are stated in the budget. So what do you have to say in regards these initial needs that are, being allocated to these different?
Okay, well, before you to cut, sorry, not to cut you rather, but I would rather say that, you see, the current government met a whole lot of deficits, and as it stands right now, I'm talking as a politician now, what we voted for was not excuses. We didn't vote for excuses. We voted to get solution. And for me, I would advise Mr. President that his area of interest or focus should be how to jumpstart the economy. The economy right now is crashing. So, and one of the ways to jumpstart this economy is, there are some appropriations that they've made in the budgets when it comes to security. I saw infrastructure. I saw what's it called?
Education does have quite a high budget this year, which is quite good.
Infrastructure, security, and education. They are quite okay, but you see, it's like business as usual. For every year, this is the same thing we get, and you can't do this same thing and expect a different result. So I think if I'm not the president, but if I was to be the president, what I would do at this moment is to channel most of these resources. Okay, yes, security is paramount, but I think we should ask ourselves, in the past few years, what with all the budgeting security, what is the security measure that's been put in place so far? What have they achieved? Okay, so I wouldn't fault the security budget. Of course, even advanced nations, they do a whole lot of budgeting, but I think that part of these resources should be channeled to development. Infrastructure. We don't have roads. We have bad roads. Now, people in the farms that are bringing out their farm product. You see, recently I saw a video on the social media where, what's it called? Goods, farm product that are coming from the farm to the cities to supply all got spoiled on the road because of bad road. They couldn't get their way to deliver the goods at their arrival as a destination. And then because of the bad roads, they were stuck on the road. And then most of those perishable goods got spoiled. So, I mean, infrastructure is very important. I think they should look, it's not just to say them, it's to do them. We want working documents. We want a working budget. It's normal that they give out this budget, but do they implement it? That's another area, implementation of this budget, appropriation of this budget. I think, okay.
And if I get you right, you're also saying accountability checks.
Accountability checks.
For us to know, how
because
effective.
a whole lot of times they send out this budget, and then the next year we get back to new budgets. We don't even know what they did with the last budget, and we don't see the evidence, we don't see the proofs, we don't see the works.
Comrade Godwin Omini is the Director General, PDP Young Stakeholders Forum. Because this has just been presented and we're all waiting for the full breakdown, we'll bring you much later. Obviously, you're speaking as a politician, but as a Nigerian. So when we get full context, it's good that we're just having this overview over the next couple of weeks and watching how the National Assembly deals with it. We'll have more insight and we'll bring you back to have this conversation together with Iniobong. That's the much we can take on the political segment. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we have Tender with Entrepreneur Spotlight and Emeka Ozorumba with the Poetic Interlude. Don't go away.